I think this is a tough one. Is that there are times I give you enough slack and enough of your own decision making, your own independence, to where not only I know it's your decision to make, I know it's a matter of your opinion, I know it's a matter of your preference, but I don't like it. What do I do with that? I'm really tempted to want to give you my opinion on things. We have a neighbor who painted their house a stark white. It's next door to our house. And it is bright white. And I think that's kind of a trend for some new houses to be this bright white. It's got some black trim, but it's just different than all the houses. And it's funny is that my kids have come to visit and they see this house next door, and as it was being painted, and then after it got the second coat on, it looked a lot different too. But they're like, what are they doing? Why are they picking that house color? I don't like it. I don't like that. I'm like, it's their house. They can paint any color they want. We don't care. And that's a trivial thing, but is it wrong if you have a stark white house? It's not wrong, but it's not something I would have chosen. Trivial matter, but with matters of more substance and matters that can impact your life or those around you, is it wrong? And no, that's just my opinion that your choice was wrong. Can I offer my opinion in those situations? Carefully, compassionately, and with a critical eye on yourself. The answer, I think, is maybe. Because I think that's treading on dangerous territory to be offering opinions when they're just opinions and the outcome is a matter of preference. And a lot of how we get along with one another, a lot of it, we have doctrinal issues that we have to take stands on, but let's just be honest with ourselves. A lot of the consternation or concern that I have for other people is over opinions instead of matters of doctrine. And there may be times to offer with wisdom and with humility and with patience my opinion on a matter. But if I've got an opinion on everything, and Samantha's tired of hearing my opinions, she's just going to shut down after a while. To where when there's something that really is a matter of one's faith or one's soul salvation, and I've offered all these opinions over the years where you go, I can dismiss that because I can see that that's a matter of judgment and I have a different judgment, still under the law. But if I have become the one who's always so full of opinions and so full of ideas and always so sure about myself, what happens when it really matters? And I want to offer that correction. What happens? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. People aren't going to listen, Samantha says. So that's why I say with great care and with a significant dollop of hesitation, one offers their opinions on things that just don't make a huge difference. I think one of the examples, maybe just because we now have 4 kids that are all out of the house, but one of the greatest examples of that, I think, is child rearing. Let's just say that Allison and I's perspective on child rearing doesn't line up with a lot of other people. We had different opinions on how things should be done. And they were their opinions. I have already apologized many times to Michaela for being the first child. She was the experiment. And I've told her before, I was too hard on you. I was too rough on you. You were the first. And I'd never done this before. and I've seen the manual, and I've read the manual. I'm always used to be one of the guys that wants to read the manual before you open anything new. Some of you rip the top off the box, and the manual, and it just goes in the trash. I would read that manual because I wanted to know how you operate something. And with babies, you get a little alarms that go off and say, it's time to feed him, it's time to change my wet diaper. You get these little alarms. But other than that, it's kind of a trial by fire. Hopefully there's someone older that comes alongside and says things like, I remember one that was just always humorous to me, is Allison was a strict disciplinarian, let's just say it that way. And she expected children to be able to sit through a worship service quietly and patiently, which is a difficult and high bar to achieve sometimes. And if one of the kids went out, she would yank him out of the pew, and it would be like a flash down the side aisle to the back. And when Allison was doing that, you could hear her stomp, 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 because she was on a mission, And some of you remember Larry Barker. Larry Barker came to Allison one time and said, I appreciate that you take the kids out when you think it's necessary, but when you take them by the arm, make sure their feet can touch the ground as you're taking them to the back. Because sometimes they just kind of flew all the way. And she took that to heart. And she made sure their feet touched the ground from then on. Is that a big thing or a little thing? You'll have to expound on that if you're going to answer yes. Yeah, I got to know what you mean, Aaron, what you're talking about.
Well, if you're talking about the fact of Larry saying that, it's both a big thing and a little thing. Mm-hmm. It's just a little small comment, encouragement, instruction, but it can make a big impact. Sometimes I always accuse Larry Barker of being a profound simpleton because what he said was always very short and direct and to the point. But if you would put thought into it, a lot of what Larry Barker said had such deep meaning that it really made a difference. So yes, it was a small thing, but yet it was a big thing. Because just like you said, she took it to heart. And a lot of the reason she took it to heart was because it was given with love and caring and everything that we've been talking about. It was given to build someone up, not to condemn their actions.
You worked for Larry for a time, did you not? Did you actually work in his employ?
I did not. No,
okay,
Larry did electric. Okay. I spent all my time with Don.
But you've worked with Larry on projects.
A couple times, yes.
Yeah. So Larry had his certain ways. It's not Bash Larry Barker Day, but he was opinionated for sure. But he respected Allison, and Allison respected him. I grew up being in Larry Barker's house a lot when I was young. I was good friends with Luana and Chris and Melissa, and spent a lot of time at their home. And they would open their home. And I still remember Donna's cooking like it was yesterday. And Donna was the soft edge on Larry's knife sometimes. And she took the edge off. But Larry offered it with respect. Larry didn't always have respect for people the way that I might have judged that he should have. He's a little coarse sometimes, just direct, just very blunt. I was raised by Mary Walker, so I get blunt, I get direct. But as far as the influence one has with patience and being able to come alongside someone and suggest that you need to take a little edge off of your discipline with your children, he said it in a way that she took the point and she made application. Now, the good story, the good ending to that story is that all of our kids today say, Mom, you were the meanest mom in Bartholomew County, for which we are grateful. And if you know the Walker family, you understand what that means. They appreciated having rules and having enforcement of rules and knowing where they stand or where they don't stand, where they didn't like that flight down the aisle any more than anyone else did. And they got those lessons. Having now raised 4 children, that's this grandparent gene kicks in. And you start being a lot less of a disciplinarian and a lot more of, I want the cuddle times and I want the fun and I want the birthday cake and I want things like that. I'll leave that disciplinarian stuff to somebody else. Like you, this child I raised. You can do this. I'm going to leave that to you. If I have confidence that you can do it. But come alongside. One with patience, one with experience, one with wisdom. But do it in love. Bearing one another with love. Love many define according to the feelings. And real love, this is number C, by the way, of building up one another, lesson 10. Real love is not feelings because feelings fluctuate. Genuine love has commitment at its core and is personified by patience. And patience can only be had by an act of the will. So I started with, the older I got, the less patient I became, was my perception. And that means that I wasn't putting my force of will into my behavior as strictly as I should have. To allow myself the luxury of being impatient with other people. And I call it a luxury because my impatience comes at a cost to other people's lives. And so I'm taking maybe your time. Maybe I'm adding frustration to you as a way to ease and better my own perception of myself or my own experience. If I'm impatient in traffic, it's because I'm usually in a perceived hurry and I cut someone else off and cause them frustration and concern for safety and et cetera. But my patience has taxed someone else's storehouse of life in some way. My impatience cost other people something. And it's a matter of my will over what I want or what I think I want. That's important. Real love puts up with and endures. Long suffering means that. It means to suffer long. Love is patient, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Patience is the first quality of love that must be in place. It is like water and sun to a plant. Love cannot grow without patience. I've thought about my patience and why I have this perception I lack patience, and I've been working on it. And I think I've largely restored it now. I think I've largely got back to that place with when I don't see your life going the way I wish it would, I don't internalize that and make that my problem. That might still be your problem. Your lack of maturity may itself be an issue, but I'm not going to get worked up over it to where I feel impatient about how you make life's choices. And that has to be a conscious effort. Love solves people's problems by being patient. How can love solve people's problems by patience? That is not a trick question. It may sound like one. How can love be a problem solver in regard to one's own patients? Come on. This is easy. How is love a problem solver with patience? The people you are out impatient with will what? Well, they may not. Well, I mean, if you're patient with them, they may come to confide with you. Aren't you going to do the same thing you did and grow out of it? I mean, if it's a matter of my impatience and it interferes with my relationship with other people keep changing too. They keep growing. And if I can just not be in such a big hurry to conform their perceptions to my own, they'll grow out of it. If I give them the time, if I give them the space, mentally I'm talking about. This is what's going on inside of my head when it comes to my patients. You may not see it. You may sense or perceive certain things about my thoughts towards others. But if I am applying patience, it's first got to apply up here. And then it manifests itself in how I interact with someone who is stimulating me to want that impatience to come out, to be expressed. But if I use it as a tool of, they're a good person, and they're on the right track, and they keep learning from their experiences. And at some point, I won't have to be patient with them anymore because they'll get it. They'll figure it out. And if it's, again, a matter of judgment and a matter of opinion, we get so worked up over opinions. When with patience, those things would work out. One moment, Harriet.
It comes down to when someone becomes impatient, and I tell this to my daughter a lot, you're either too tired, too hungry, or too in a hurry. Make sure those things are taken care of before you go out anywhere, because you will lose it. There's hangry people, and here, eat a candy bar, eat it. But I know controlling the actions of others, you can't do that. You can't make people do things. You can only encourage them to do the right thing.
That's right.
What can you control? You can control your own self and what's in your scope.
Barely.
And so when you get frustrated because someone is not doing the right thing, it's, well, why? What's happened? What's happened in their life that they're reluctant to dip their toe in? Bad previous experience. There's poor history, child rearing, whatever that may be. There's something blocking that. So you're going to ask, what's the matter with you? No, you don't say that. What's happened to you that you can't make that next step? So how can we help you do that? Being blunt, a long time ago, one of our preachers, he's a sweetie pie, he goes, we had a lady come into the congregation who was a go-go dancer. And I giggled because, yes, back then it was a go-go dancer, and her skirts were really short. And the women in the congregation were upset because, when you pass the plate, whatever, you see knees, and that's not good. He goes, ladies, don't say anything. She'll get it. He knew she would get it, and she did. And she started dressing with longer skirts. She stopped go-go dancing. She's a wonderful person now. Actually, I found her on Facebook this morning, and she's doing great. She's a mamaw. So how can we control the actions of others? Sometimes it's not saying a word and being a really good example. But encourage them, what's happened that you can't get to this next step? So not what's the matter with you. It's what's happening.
All right, I appreciate that, Harriet. So Harriet's given a good roadmap to success for patients, and that is self-introspection, because the problem's not you, it's me. I got hung up on how cool it is for a grandchild to say, yeah, my grandma's a go-go dancer. I just thought that'd be fun to say. But we can look at ourselves and judge why it is we're impatient and start there. And if we can deal with the problems in our own life, whether it's being in a hurry or being hangry and those kind of things, then deal with that first. And then maybe the course of action is to look, what is it that has influenced this person to make the decisions they have, and understand some of that. Now, patience is, it's back to getting to know one another again. I mean, not always, but typically you're more patient with the people that you can relate to their past than you are with people that you don't know. You can develop the bond there that allows you to see past the obstacles that have been in their own life and work towards, we can get along. I can put up with this and they'll figure it out. These things sound oversimplified again, but these are problem-solving tools, because we generate our own problems more often than we should in our relationships with one another. Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question. You said that, eventually they'll figure it out. What if they don't? Because that could also happen. I mean, patience is good. Don't get me wrong, but I think sometimes some people can be a little bit too patient. I think that could also be an issue when you're dealing with certain things. You could be a little bit, you might display patience for a long time, but then there does come a point where someone isn't getting something where they kind of do need a little firmer approach after a while, because they didn't get it when you were patient. Does that make sense?
So you resisted using the hammer on the nail when
Yes.
you first interacted with this situation.
Yes.
But now maybe you need to get the level out, or you need another tool, right, to address the problem. And over time, I mean, you take a bolt off that's fresh and just been tightened down differently, one that's been rusted in place for 20 years. If you go at it with the wrong tool, you're going to break off that rusty bolt if you don't do some other preparation work, to make another analogy. All right, people are waking up now. I appreciate that. 9:30, we're going to go to bed earlier.
Just recently, I was reading things that impact your life and things that you need to do. It was not spiritually involved, but I see a great application here. It was called spaciousness, and it is exactly what you're talking about. Between the trigger, which is what makes you want to be impatient, and your reaction, if you can leave some space called spaciousness between the trigger and your reaction to it, then you are practicing patience.
Mm-hmm. Take some edge off of it. Don't be so quick to react.
I guess I was thinking along the lines of, I don't see where there is necessarily an end to patience. I agree that there comes a time sometimes when things need to be pointed out. Some things that I think are effective are that the way it's done, the presentation of it, and that they know what your motive is. Your motive is not to slam them. Your motive is their eternal salvation. I was thinking about things that are approaches that are unhelpful, some that we can remember in our own lives growing up. Those are the approaches that we don't want to use with other people. Obviously, it wasn't effective with us, I'm not sure that it means that there's no interaction about it at all. And like I said, I'm not sure that there's still, even when they're not getting it, that there's an end to patience, but maybe different approach. Has there been trust between the two of you? Do they know that your motive is their eternity and not what I wish, or an opportunity to find somebody to correct, just having a list of people that are situations that you disallow and you are going to confront everybody. But I'm not sure there's an end to the patience, but an effective approach to a different approach, but not without patience. Different, but not without patience yet.
So I want to make sure we're on the same page. You talked about one's salvation twice. We're not going to be patient where someone is lost, and we're not going to try to do something about that.
Or intimidating, is what I'm saying.
Even though if you believe that this person's soul salvation is in jeopardy, you're still patient. You're still loving
Yes.
in the correction. But patience may be that it's just something that's out there, and it may stay out there throughout your whole life. And so in order to make the relationship better, my wife can say, when you drink ketchup out of the bottle, that annoys me. I don't do that. When you drink ketchup out of the bottle, that annoys me. Okay, that's not a salvation thing. That's a relationship thing. And when she sees me continue to do it, or when I give her a glinty stare and then I take a big swig out of the ketchup bottle, okay, I am destroying the relationship over nothing, but people do stuff like that, believe it or not. The point is, though, that if it's a habit that I had because my mother said, always drink your ketchup straight from the bottle, and I've done that since my childhood, it may take me a while to break that habit for her sake. Oh, I forgot. I know you don't like the ketchup bottle drinking thing, and I'll work on that. So we are not talking about matters of damnation. We are talking about matters of opinion, matters of behavior, matters of idiosyncrasies, judgments, curiosities, these kind of things. And those are the things that stir us to frustration with one another. I would argue more often than matters of salvation, because we can draw a bright line there. And it's hard to draw a bright line on the ketchup bottle. I bought that ketchup bottle with my money. If I want to drink straight from the bottle, that's up to me. But I may be hurting relationships with other people by that habit. Samantha.
Yes. Going back to what Joy was saying about like the different approaches. I mean, there's that passage in Jude that talks about that. And at the end of the day, the goal is to help someone make it to heaven, and you do what you can in order to get that result. If obviously the end choice is going to be up to them, but you're trying to help someone make it to heaven. That's the end goal there.
It is. And there are subtle ways. It goes back to kind of Aaron's point about, how Larry would interact with people. There was usually something pretty good to know in what he had to share. This is just about getting along again. That's what this book's about. We're getting along with people. I don't get my way all the time, and that makes me impatient. I got to deal with the impatient problem regardless of what the matter is that makes me feel that way. I've got to deal with those feelings first, is what we're trying to learn from this. And I got to see, are there circumstances that have put me in this feeling? Can I deal with those circumstances? Do I have a good relationship with the one who's generating these feelings? I'm the one generating the feelings. Let's be clear about that. When I am impatient, it's not because of what you did, it's because of how I react to what you did. That's 100% true all the time. if I don't care about you, if I totally dismiss you, if I have no regard for you as a person, I can't be impatient with you because I have zero expectations of you, right? Patience is all about how I react to external stimuli. And I can react positively or I can react negatively. Sometimes the best reaction is just get over yourself. Stop thinking that the world has to spin around you. That's really the best answer sometimes. And move on with your life, you know. But let's identify when it is that there are substantial issues that do need to be addressed and how best to handle that, as opposed to looking at, well, I always have to, now I just got to be patient with people. That means I just got to, you know, disregard. Maybe not. But I have to find a way in love and in charity and with a view of my own imperfections on how I deal with that. And, you know, I'll tell you what. If someone receives some advice from you and they sense that it's just out of concern for me that I get that advice, I have had people tell me some of the wackiest things. I would never do that in a million years. But they meant it sincerely when they said it. And I've always said, I appreciate your advice on that. I can give examples of things. Well, yeah, I'll try that. Well, where did you hear that? Oh, I Googled that, or I saw that on TikTok. Yeah, I'll try that. No, I'm not doing it. But that's not how I approach it. I say, oh, I appreciate your advice. I'll take a look at that and I'll give it some consideration. No, but I don't take it out on someone who genuinely is concerned about me. Genuine sincerity, genuine love overlooks things like, that's just a crazy idea. Just let it roll. Go on. It's that easy. It really is that easy. And you've had advice from me and you go, I've met your family. I'm not following your advice. That's crazy. Over here.
So there's a difference between things that are preferences and choices and opinions and things that may or may not lead to salvation or do lead to salvation one way or the other. Eternity, salvation, or condemnation. I think probably when I see things that are not a matter of their salvation, I end up putting it in under opinion, preference, so I'm wondering, why have I decided to change that about them? What is that about me? Is it about them? So really, the only things that I typically no, that's going to sound like I don't have any preferences. That's not the truth. But when it comes down to it, the things that matter are the things that have to do with eternity. However, we are human beings and we do have opinions and we do have preferences. But I would think, where's that coming from where I think I need to change that about that person? And like Harriet said, we can't. We can put our view out there, I wish you wouldn't, and that kind of thing, but at the end of the day, we can't change another person. Humans have all kinds of idiosyncrasies and opinions and preferences and things like that, but to try and change someone else's, you have the floor, you can put your opinion out there, but not with the expectation that it's for sure going to change or they're for sure going to change because you have them too. And how do you know what you're doing that's aggravating somebody else? So there is a difference, but we are, I just typically don't put a whole lot of emotion and effort and time into things that are opinions and preferences because I know I have my own. And I know that I can't change it. It doesn't mean I can't say something. But when it comes down to it, if it's salvation's what matters to me. Is this going to cost them their soul or not? And if it's not, do I need to say anything?
We are to pursue things that make for peace. We pursue things that make for peace, and patience is part of that. That's a pursuit. That's a conscious choice on my part to say it's not about necessarily changing people as more as it is about building and repairing relationships with people. And patience is about building and repairing relationships with people. And we get that confused with sort of black and white. It's got to be this way, got to be that way.
Well, I know when someone doesn't respond in a way that, well, oh, they didn't respond that way. I used to do sales, so a lot of times you have to get a different approach. Sometimes you just have to walk away and let somebody else take it. You know, female, male, you know, older, younger. Sometimes it's just approach. And a lot of times you can do a team, that type of thing, but letting that person know that, you know, your soul's in jeopardy. And if, you know, if you're trying to change that person for the better and it's not, and you're being impatient, sometimes the best action is to walk away, not walk away, step back a little bit and give them some breathing room. Mm-hmm. You know, I haven't heard from you. Where have you been? Well, here's what's going on. There's something I'm doing or not doing that is not helping you to respond in the best way possible. Sometimes it's just giving that person some time to think about themselves. And I'm all about giving people space, because sometimes that's your best action, is giving them some space to think about it. Because being hit over the head with a frying pan is not a good thing. That's not good for their soul. That's not good for their self-esteem. They'll just walk away and go worship with the Buddhists or the Lutherans or whoever, because, wow, I didn't get hit over the head there. So a lot of times it's approach. And the fella you're talking about who said things about like the feet and things like that, I'm sure he was a sweetheart, and he had a good heart and he had good intentions. But sometimes as a new Christian, it's not good to be around someone that will hit you over the head with frying pan, because you're going to go, maybe this isn't for me. I'm all about handling people like an egg, because that egg will break. But everyone's different.
You are one who my mother will sit in front of you, and she likes you, by the way, but you handle her different than other people do. And my mom sings always about true identity. If she thinks you are expressing your true identity in whatever it is the interaction is, she has respect. If she thinks you're trying to pussyfoot around her or not give you your true identity, your true feelings about something, or who you really are as a person, she values that true identity over almost anything other in terms of personal relations. So argue and disagree and all that, that's great. Not everyone's like that. Not everyone's like that. And so it is about knowing one another and using these tools to assess what's that person's space, and are they going to use that time and space to their advantage and grow? And if so, I don't have to get the frying pan out, right? And sometimes a good knock in the head is just about the best thing there is, but that's pretty rare, actually. It's pretty rare. All right. I think, for your sake, I'm going to have to say we're done in lesson 10. I would still like the opportunity to look at some of the discussion questions with you if you want to review those and go over those. Other than that, make preparation to move beyond. Although there's so much good stuff in here still. I tell you, the top of page 59 is just a great little, you can read that and review the discussion questions. So, well, we'll just do this. Read the top of page 59, review the discussion questions, and be prepared to enter into lesson 11, submitting to one another. You mean I don't have to just put up with people? I've got to submit to them too? Yes, we do. All right, thank you for the participation this morning.